I told you I wasn't going to let up on CBS for disgracing American war heroes, and I meant it. Today, the five reached out again to CEO Les Moonves and Amazing Race executive producer Jerry Bruckheimer, and again, they refused to apologize. Not only that, they wouldn't even comment on this disgrace. I'm calling on them to apologize to Vietnam vets after sending reality show contestants to the wreckage of an American B-52 bomber shot down in Hanoi. Greg first told us about this story Wednesday.
Teams must now make their way to the B-52 Memorial, site of the wreckage of a B-52 bomber shot down during the Vietnam War, and where they'll find their next clue.
Here?
Wait. Oh, there's a U-turn board.
Yeah.
Oh, it's a double.
This is a double U-turn.
The Amazing Race episode also broadcast communist propaganda. I spoke today with Senator John McCain. It was 40 years ago last week that he returned from Vietnam after being a POW for over 5 years. He says regardless of how this happened, CBS owes veterans an apology. Eric, I assume you agree with Senator McCain, obviously.
Yes, on this one thing, I actually do agree with Senator McCain. Bob, can I just do this? Can I give it back to you? Because you've been on this from the very beginning. Greg brought the story. It really hit home with you, and it's really resonating. I'll tell you, on Twitter, my Twitter feed lit up last night after the show. I've probably never got more tweets, and all of them were response to how proud they were of you stepping up, standing up for American
That's nice.
veterans.
Dana taught me how to do a hashtag last night. The thing just blew up after that. It was going on all night long.
I'm glad that we could share that moment.
Yes, it was.
In the past, hashtag meant something else to you.
Yes, it did. Dana, let me ask you something from a strictly public relations standpoint. Why? Why do they not just say, I'm sorry?
I think it's partly because of the Fox News syndrome that Greg has talked about, that if Fox News brings it up, then it must be crazy black helicopter conspiracy. But they don't realize, and somebody should have been helping them get out of their own way, is that Greg didn't come up with this story on his own. There was a Vietnam vet who emailed him, what was it, Sunday night?
Yeah, he emailed me after the show. It said, and he was actually very polite about it. He just said, I'm watching this. This is kind of weird.
Well, this is how you found out about it?
Yeah, guy
From a
emailed me,
viewer.
so that's when I took the email and I forwarded it to the producer. I go, this is crazy. And he made this great point. He says, are there going to be three-legged races at Gettysburg, a potato sack race at Normandy, a tug-of-war at Abu Ghraib? I mean, he was like, had good humor about it, but it bothered him.
Yeah, for sure. Andrew, what do you think from strictly from a public relations standpoint as well? Why do you think? Do you agree with Dana that it's because it's Fox, because we bring it up? Or is it, I mean, how can you be that, stupid and insensitive?
Well, I think that has something to do with it, absolutely. But what they should understand is this has grown much bigger than Fox News. I mean, this is a lot of their viewers that are very upset with this. And I don't know if they're just tone deaf, Bob, and they think that this will blow over and they're just trying to ride it out. But the first rule is when you step in, you know what, fix it, clarify, apologize, and move on. Instead, this has gotten so much bigger, and they haven't stopped the bleeding, and they should apologize ASAP because I don't think it's going away. It's just getting bigger.
You know what I think it is, though? I think it's about age. I think that, they're thinking, okay, the average age of a Vietnam vet is probably over 60 at this point, probably the mid-60s. Generally these shows now are run by emasculated metrosexuals who are chasing the mentality of a 16-year-old girl. They don't actually care about anybody over 55. They don't.
I'm sure that's right. I spoke also today to the commander of the American Legion, who has sent a letter to CBS demanding an apology. They have 2.5 million vets that they represent. He said that he wants to tell CBS that none of them will be watching that show again, and he wanted to thank, by the way, the five for bringing this forward. But it was a very poignant discussion. I allowed us how I had opposed the Vietnam War myself as it began, and he said, I followed your career, Bob. I know you did. He said, but you've done the right thing here. And it got very emotional near the end of our conversation. Mm-hmm. And this guy felt, he himself was a Vietnam veteran, and he clearly felt this right down to the core of his being.
Yeah, I'm against boycotts. I hate the idea of boycotts. I think the better thing to do is to man up and apologize. You say something wrong. I've been there, firsthand doing this. I misspoke. They should absolutely apologize. Now, if this thing is already taped and they can't get the show to apologize on tape, they can certainly run something at the end of one of the shows. Hey, we're sorry for the insensitivity to the Vietnam vets, or all veterans for that matter, or all Americans for that matter.
Or
sorry. Can I just do this very quickly? Karl Rove had something to say. He wants to say, he's got a message for you, which is going to appear later on tonight on Greta, but he has a message. Watch.
God bless Bob Beckel for standing up on this issue. This was tone deaf, insensitive, callous, and stupid on the part of CBS to do this. They allowed themselves to insult every Vietnam-era veteran and their families, and those particularly who cherish the memory of someone lost in that conflict by doing this. I cannot imagine what idiot producer at CBS did this, and CBS ought to take action. And Bob was right to stand up and say something about it, and I really applaud him for doing so.
You can circle your calendar. There's 2 times I've agreed with Senator McCain and Karl Rove in the same segment.
In one show.
And Bob.
My worlds are colliding.
And all of us agree with Bob.
You know how the guy says it's a double U-turn?
Yeah.
It's a double mistake, because having the contestants go there in the first place, so it's either ignorant or willful. And now you could maybe add a triple U-turn or triple mistake, because now instead of just saying we meant no offense, and we will be more sensitive in the future, and letting this go, because we would never talk about it again. Now you have primetime shows covering it. I would also imagine that there are a lot of Iraqi and Afghan war vets who will stand with the Vietnam vets and say, we're going to stand with them, because this could happen to us in the future, and we want people to know what our sacrifice was and how we fought for our country and our freedoms and what our country asked us to do.
Right. I do think that these producers are, they probably think Ho Chi Minh is a type of sushi and POW is a new song by One Direction. So I have an idea. We should have a reality show where they send contestants to a location where Americans have died, and the first contestant to recognize and refuse participation gets to punch the producer in the face.
That's what I was thinking about the contestants. Wouldn't it be great if one of those contestants actually came forward and said, you know what, I didn't know, or I'm ashamed, or I apologize.
And the producers, at first we chalked it up to, this is likely a producer who doesn't know better and an executive who does know better. But to your point, Dana, it does appear like they know better, and that's what's upsetting, because people aren't taught the lessons of history and the sacrifices that our troops made. That's why, if it is about Fox, it's really insulting, because it's not about Fox News. It's not about the viewers. It's about the veterans who made the sacrifices. It's about the atrocities. It's about the evil. And you know what, Bob? I'm not sure a lot of people understand it. And what's most shameful is now they do. They have no excuse. The executives can't say, we didn't know, we weren't sure. They know, they're choosing to not say anything. And that is what is upsetting.
I don't think it's about Fox. Jerry Bruckheimer is not a 20-something. He's been around. He knows what's going on. And frankly, I don't think he's partisan. I think he's just a guy who blew it. This is more about character. Character meaning Bruckheimer or Moonves, both of you guys probably should do it. One of you should stand up and say, we blew it. We're sorry, but do they have the character to do it?
Well, let me just say, I got thousands and thousands of tweets. I haven't had that many since I started the tweet thing. And Dana got me turned on to this thing. And I'll tell you, for the first time, about 99% of them were favorable, which for me is exactly the opposite
get used to it.
Normally is. Let me ask you something here, Greg. You made a good point here about, do you think it is really possible that they made a decision that their audience is younger, not Vietnam connected, and therefore this was just fine to go ahead with?
I think it was, if anybody had noticed it, their assumption was their audience is too passive and distracted. It operates under the assumption of what's really the big deal. That was 40 years ago. Who cares? I think that's how they looked at it. The problem is there are so many outlets for that kind of opinion. In fact, if you look, most colleges are an outpost of anti-militarianism and anti-Americanism that we've come to accept. And I think all we're asking is, can you just not put it in the reality shows we like to watch with our families? Just that,
Well, what if they could have gone to Vietnam?
Yeah.
And even if the Vietnamese government said, okay, we're going to have you go here and here, but they could have scripted the show differently.
Right.
I mean, they could have said, and we know what happened here, and we're not for this. We are for freedom, and they could have made it. Please forgive me, I think it's a banned phrase. A teachable moment.
Yes, it is. A banned phrase.
I'm sorry.
No, don't you think that even if older veterans or older viewers are hearing about this story, don't you think that they are talking about it to their kids, to the younger generations? I think that it's actually permeating and getting larger, and I think they're hoping, let's ride it out over the weekend and it'll
We
go
should find
away.
some vets to go up against the contestants of The Amazing Race and see who would win.
Yeah, exactly.
That'd be fun.
You know, one thing, let me just say, I'm so absorbed in this, and I get mad, believe it or not, every minute about it. But, you know, if I said this before, excuse me, but Vietnam defined my generation. It was the defining moment. And not just for 850,000 Vietnam veterans, but for an entire generation, the baby boomers. And it was a painful, painful experience for everybody. At the very least, you could have thought about that and said, Vietnam, gee, that almost ripped America apart. And maybe this is not the kind of place we should go and bring the memories of that back up. So, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I haven't heard a single person, not even included from CBS or even on Twitter, that says, oh, it's not that big of a deal. Like, nobody is actually, I mean, this is what's weird. There's not even, nobody's defending it.
And silence has never been louder, I think, by not saying anything. Silence. They're screaming that they either endorse this or they know they screwed up. So which one is it?
Yeah.
Well, how do they get away with silence?
Well,
I mean,
did they though, Bob? We contacted them twice, right?
3 times.
3 times. Didn't they at one point they said we have no comment?
Yeah, I think every time they said that.
Isn't that a comment in and of itself?
Yeah,
that's a comment.
Well, Dana,
we're
you
not
know
commenting.
this. Isn't no comment a pretty indictable statement to make?
Yeah, it's basically a show them the hand. Not
Beat
comment.
it.
I mean, there's different ways to no comment. If it's national security related, you can say a no comment, and with the, we'll get back to you later. But this is basically a shut up, Bob.
Shut up, Bob. Well, I've heard that before. All right. We'd like to know your thoughts on this whole issue with CBS, and should CBS apologize to Vietnam vets? Go to facebook.com/the5FNC and vote in our poll. We'll let you have a chance to send the Suits at CBS a message about what you think. So far, more than 3,000 of you have taken the poll, and overwhelmingly, I think something like 3,000 said apologize and 50 said don't. Coming up,